Welcome to another episode of the Shine and Thrive Photography Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Monica, and today we're chatting all about underwater shooting with Taylor Walston. I just finished my chat with her, and holy crapoly, she is such an inspiration. Just the way that she shows up energetically in her business, in her on her Instagram feed, and also the work that she creates. So Taylor is a full-time adventure and underwater photographer and educator based in Hawaii. She loves documenting love and also using her work to spread awareness for ocean conservation. And seriously, you're going to want to check out her work. It's so stunning. You can find her on Instagram at Taylor R. Walston. So that's TaylorRWalston. So definitely check her out because it's incredible. And in today's episode, you will hear all about pretty much a lot of advice that Taylor has for those wanting to take the plunge. Pun intended, in offering underwater or in water photography. She'll also share what underwater housing to invest in at the start and also how to set expectations with your clients and even outfit and prompt do's and don'ts in water and underwater. And if at any point of this episode you find yourself loving what you're hearing and learning, we would be so grateful and love it if you could take a screenshot of the episode on your podcast player and then tag us both on Instagram so we can reshare to our stories and also connect with you. So you can tag me at Sarah Monica Photo, that's Sarah no H, Monica with a K, and then Taylor at Taylor R. Walston. All right. So enjoy tuning into this episode and learning from Taylor. And I can't wait to connect with you when you reshare the episode because I know you're going to want to because it's a goodie. Well, Taylor, welcome so much to the Shine and Thrive Photography Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here and
Thank
connect
you.
with you.
I'm excited too.
And I'm so excited to chat about today's topic because I actually don't know much about it. Normally, so many of the topics that I have guests on here, I know a little bit about, but this is pretty much something where I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna like learn so much from you along with my
Yay!
listeners as well.
I'm so
And I know
excited.
you're like obsessed with talking about underwater shooting, right?
Yes. Yes, I am.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, I can't wait to pick your brain. And I think where I want to just start the conversation is I'm so curious as to how did you even get inspired to start shooting underwater and in water?
Okay, so that's like a pretty loaded question. So I'll spark note it because that could be like a full that whole story could take up our full time together. But so I knew I had been doing photography for about 5, maybe actually like 3 years at that point. Um, and I moved to Hawaii in about 4 hours notice. I started photography in college, first of all. And then when I graduated, I had actually gone through a divorce and I was like, where do I go from here? The last place I was comfortable was California. That's where I grew up. So I started applying to jobs because I had my bachelor's in communications and I landed this job in real estate as a communications director in Los Angeles. I thought I would love it because I'd worked as a property manager for 2 years prior to that. Loved that job, loved who I worked for. But I actually ended up hating it. Not to knock on anybody there by any means, but it just is. I lived in West Hollywood. I am not a very bougie person. I am a beach bum at heart and found myself in Venice most of the time. But I tried to continue my photography while I was there. The only thing that was really sustainable there, though, were like headshots and things like that. And that's just not what I was about. So I'll skip the whole story about how I ended up in Hawaii, but I came out here over a weekend and was like, I just was diving and I was sitting on the ocean floor and I knew that if I didn't move here, I would never be happy. It was like the most overwhelming feeling. And so I went back and I gave my notice to my job and I was supposed to be there for 2 more weeks. But that Friday, my property managers were like, well, we'll let you out of your lease, but you have to leave today. And that was November 1st, 2019. And so I was like, all right, I guess I'm headed to Hawaii.
Wow.
And pretty much, I mean, my photography is still something that I brought with me here. And I started dating this guy, Kobian, and we were dating. I mean, I met him, I think, 2 months after I moved here, and he's a huge underwater photographer and videographer and extremely talented. And I fell in love with it right away because I got into freediving, and that's just being able to share conservation about the ocean and all of that was really important to me. And that's kind of pretty much how it started.
Wow, that is so beautiful.
Thank
I love
you.
those pivotal moments. And yeah, that was definitely the Spark Notes like
Yeah,
version. Good
very
job at
much.
that because
Thank you.
because
I've
sometimes it
told
can
them a
be
lot.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Like
Yeah.
I love how you painted the picture of you sitting on the ocean in the ocean floor in
Yeah.
Hawaii and this just like I love those moments in life where out of nowhere it's like this like knowing of
It just clicked.
yeah,
Yeah,
I love those
totally.
moments. And it's kind
Yeah.
of like, I'm guessing in that moment you felt in a way fearless and you're like, no, I know what I have to do. It's decided I'm doing it.
Yes,
And then, of course,
totally.
fear pops in between when you're transitioning to moving there. But then that's incredible. And
Thank
I'm
you. Yeah, I
straight up
didn't have
jealous that you live in Hawaii. And
no, I didn't have too much time to think about it either. It was just like I had dealt with so much depression from my divorce and also a medication that I was on. And so it was like just like it was this or nothing, and
Mm,
completely changed my life. I mean, the love of my life, we're 2 years in. It's like the best thing that ever, everything, it was the best decision I ever made. But I didn't have too much time to be scared about it. And then
yeah.
I do have my memories, core memories of moments where I was definitely crying and like talking to my friends, like, what the heck did I do? But yeah, it was, yeah, definitely the best decision that I've ever made. So
That's amazing. I'm so curious if what's your partner's name? Kobian?
Cobian, yes,
Kobian. Okay,
Cobian
awesome.
3, Cobian
Um,
3. Mhm.
I'm wondering, like, if you two didn't cross paths, do you think you would have started shooting, like transitioning your photography into playing underwater or
Yes.
like anyway? Or is it kind of like he sparked that in you? Like, what sparked your interest into experimenting underwater?
So it's actually a really cool story. So when I was in college, first of all, I grew up terrified of sharks, but I've always been a little mermaid. And my whole family would attest to that. But when I was in college, I came across a commercial by Oceana with Nina Dobrev, who I actually met at a party in LA, which is like another crazy thing. But with Nina Dobrev on shark finning that they had done in collaboration with One Ocean Diving, which is actually based here on the North Shore. And it completely changed my whole perspective on the ocean, on sharks. And like immediately I was like, I needed to know more. I needed to know how I could help. And all of my college projects started becoming about shark finning and sharks and the impacts that it has on the ocean. And when I moved here, I actually met Juan and Ocean, who started One Ocean Diving through my boyfriend Kobian. But I had told him like I've wanted to swim with sharks for so long, like since I learned more about this, and he kind of just made it happen. And I met them. They took us out on a dive, and I mean that kind of transitioned me into freediving right away. And then I became a PADI freediver, like a PADI ambassador, and not that I do competitive freediving by any means. Let me just, I do want to say that. But it helped make me more equipped to be able to safely explore the ocean.
Mhm.
And so I do think that even without Kobe, and I still would have found my way there, it just probably would have taken longer. Um, but yeah, for my birthday, he gifted me my first water housing. And prior to that, I was like, I'm going to steal your housing and learn more about this and all of that. But I do think that my skills as a photographer on land definitely helped with my skills underwater. But yeah, I think it would have taken a little bit longer to figure it out and
Wow.
find it. I just knew that I wanted to find more ways to help the ocean, and my background in communications and marketing and then my background as a photographer kind of just like skyrocketed that.
Wow. That's so incredible how all the pieces like of the
Oh,
puzzle come together and they're all so
yeah.
separate and you're just like it's like you're on this journey of like, well, I'm going to follow my curiosity here and here and
Yes.
here. And then somehow, with you
It just
just
all,
making decisions that are aligned with your
yes.
soul, it comes together and creates this like unique business for yourself,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
that's
amazing.
exactly what it was. It was like these little pockets or like puzzle pieces that, and it was so interesting because I remember like when I was applying for jobs and like all of these different things or living situations even where I was like, this just doesn't feel right. And everything that didn't feel right, I just let go of. And it just kept pushing me to the right place that I needed to be. And now I'm like, wow, like I get to do all of these amazing things that I love, but it's so weird when I think about it, how crazy it is that everything just kind of puzzle pieced together.
Wow, that's so cool. And so yeah, you followed your intuition, which is always
Yeah.
so powerful. Yeah. And so I'm curious now with now you having your underwater housing, right?
Yeah,
Because that just takes shit to a whole nother level, right?
it does.
Like,
Yes,
yeah.
totally.
I'm trying to see where to take this conversation because I have like two different ways that I want to go. Okay, I know which way. Okay, so firstly, maybe let our listeners know like do you photograph both? Like, what do you mainly photograph to do with water?
Yes.
I know you photograph couples and weddings, but then also you do underwater photography. So, like, where do you have, how do you earn your money as a photographer with this like
Yeah.
beautiful niche that you've discovered?
Thank you. So that's a great question. So I had my personal Instagram, which I was doing some influencing stuff with, and then I had my photography Instagram, which when I moved here, it was like 500 followers. And now it's like it's been growing dramatically over the last, I don't even know how long, but I've reached like a 7,300 this morning or something, which it's like I just hit 7,000 like two
That's
days ago. So
amazing.
it's been
Yeah.
like growing like crazy. But so when I first started it, I knew that I had two different passions. And there's this like lie that influencers started, which in order to be successful, you had to focus on one specific thing, which is not true. And most marketing professionals will say that. But I was like, okay, how do I get to do this? Where I was like, I love underwater and brand stuff, and I love like having my own identity in it as well as an influencer. But then I was like, well, I love love, but I don't
Mm.
want to do the traditional love stuff. It's like all adventure based. Like I want to go on these incredible hikes and I want to take people in the ocean and I want to do all of these things. And so I just pretty much got to work with my website, first of all. And I was like, I'm going to find a way to very strategically tell people that these are the exact things that I do, which is I do couples, I do adventure elopements, and I do micro weddings. And then I also do brand and influencer stuff. So I get to dabble most of my underwater stuff in the brands and influencer things and work that I do in that realm, but also with couples, which is super cool and like really rad and unique. And I think that it's really fun. And because I've been able to successfully reach my target people where it's like, these are all the things that I love. And now I'm just attracting those people who also love those things, or people like, I mean, I haven't been able to do much traveling with my work in the last 2 years because of the pandemic, which has been the 2 years that I've seen the most growth. And
Mhm.
now that things are opening up again, I mean, I went and did a job with Kobe in Tahiti for Corona, the beer, not the virus. We've been able to,
That's
yeah, I always
hilarious.
have to like specify that.
Yeah.
So I've
Random
done
fact,
that,
by the
and
way, did you know
yeah.
that their sales went down like crazy because
Oh
of
yeah,
the name of it, which is
yes,
so sad. I'm
yeah.
like, no, it's such a good beer.
Yes, but also another just like random fact about them for anyone that's listening and likes beer or likes Corona, they have done so much work in sustainability and they've actually
Oh,
been a really big leader in their industry for sustainability. So it's really, really cool and they're amazing. But yeah, so and now I like booked a micro wedding in Florida with a couple that found me through my underwater stuff and they want to go do underwater stuff with their, and so it's like I get to do it in each of these things that I love and also safely because I
mhm.
have the background in my freediving training too. So it's like, yeah, those are all the things that I do. I know that was kind of a mouthful, but it kind of merges and branches into these weird little pockets of things that I just love.
I love that. I love how you explained it. And also something, it's so funny because I prescribe to the idea of getting really focused on what you want to do and doing it well and
Yeah,
offering that one thing. But what I mean by that is like the experience you want to create. So it's
totally.
not like, and this I tell my students, my listeners all the time, I'm like, I will never be the one to tell you you should do this and this is the only
Yeah.
way, because there's so many different ways. There's
Yes.
infinite possibilities of how to create your own business. And in a way, it's so funny with you like painting the picture for us about kind of what you offer and how you create and what you offer in your business. In a way, the niche, quote unquote, that you are in is specifically um to do with water and adventure, and you just
Yeah.
simply fusing the lifestyle that you want to have into your work and getting creative with people with it.
Totally. Yes.
So yeah, so
I love that.
niching down technically doesn't have to be like you only photograph
Yeah.
families and that's it. It's like you can
Yes.
photograph families in the water, and then maybe brands in the water, and maybe even couples in
Mhm.
the water. Maybe it's just you're in the water and creating, right? So
Yes. It's like, yeah. And to me, it was more like I knew the life that I wanted to create, but I also wanted to be able to create it with other like minded and adventurous people. So it really came down to really adventurous people. And like that's like been the best. I don't even know. It just kind of like happened. I was just like, I
yeah.
created my website, I knew what I wanted to do, and it all kind of just, not to say that I didn't work very hard for it or anything like that. I mean, it took 3 years of learning before it actually started to pay off. But yeah, it was, I just knew that that was what I wanted to do. And I do think that a lot of that has to play into, if you know who you are and what your voice is within your business, you will very much attract your ideal clients. And so that's pretty much been my approach in it all this time. And as it's grown, it's opened up these other opportunities. And I think that that's the biggest thing is, as photographers, especially in this community, we think we have to wear this specific hat and we have to look this certain way and we have to do these certain things. And it's not true.
Mhm.
When you are actually just yourself, you will attract your people. So
Yeah, and everything will fall into place in business more effortlessly too, which is the
totally.
most fun part.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
very rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would love to see like or to hear from you for those that are listening and they just want to dip their toe. See what
Yeah.
I did there? The pun,
Yes.
the
Yes.
accidental
Yeah.
pun that I
Me
had.
too. Dip their, how about dip their fin? Like, dip
I'll
fin.
dip their fin. It's so
Yeah.
funny. So before, can you can you still hear
Yes.
me, Taylor? Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Mhm.
I thought it froze. Before we started recording officially, I like was looking at my like questions that I had pre-prepared, and I was like, Taylor, oh my God, the way that I naturally speak is literally full of puns
Yes.
for this episode, for this underwater episode, because I was like, before we dive in, and that's what I normally say, taking the
Yeah.
plunge, just dipping your
But it's,
toe, like
yes, it's just so on brand with this
so
conversation.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, for those that just want to like get started, they're curious, they want to play around shooting underwater, like where would you suggest someone starts, right? Because it's a big investment
Yes.
to get underwater housing and to commit to
Totally.
that. So what would you suggest for them?
So this is actually something I think about and talk about all the time, because I think one of the key things is, one, safety, but also before you start investing in all of this stuff, to actually know if this is what you want to do. So I think one of the best kind of businesses to invest in as far as water housings go is Aquatech Imaging Solutions, because there are an investment, but I do also think that it's a good place to start versus like jumping full fledged into like Nauticam or these other possible options. Um, I personally use Aquatech, but I think that also, if you're like, yes, I know this is what I want to do, I think it would be worth the investment to go with something like Nauticam, where they have like pressure sensors and stuff like that. There's definitely, do your research, but Aquatech has a base housing which is compatible with a lot of different camera options. They also have housing specific to like the Canon 5D Mark IV, which is what I use. So I think you can invest in that, and then, or you, I don't know if you can do rental options, or if there's like people that if they have them, you could see if you can rent them from them, stuff like that. But I think just getting out there and seeing and shooting it and testing it out, it's just also the contradictory side to that is like, it's not an easy thing and it does take practice. So it's like, it could take you a few months to actually love it. My thing with that is also, though, that I don't think you should take people out into the water without some kind of safety or background in it, because It is no joke, especially if you're going into the ocean. It is not a playground. There are sharks, there are eels, there are so many different factors. There's currents and all these things to consider, which is actually something that I've thought about a lot with the photography community here. Is there are people that start doing it and don't have some kind of training or background, and that is concerning to me because I dive with sharks. I do a lot of diving. This isn't something that is just like I only do it with my photography. I do it in my free time. I was out doing it yesterday. So I was about choking on my hair. But so I think it's really important also to get some kind of training, whether it's like, going out and getting your first level free dive certification with Patty, or going and getting CPR certified. There's like different things you can dabble in, just because I also think, like, in your contracts, you have some kind of safety clause in your contract just for land stuff too. So
Yeah.
there's all kinds of things that can go wrong up here, just as there are so many kinds of things that can go wrong in the water too. So I think starting, seeing if it's something you're interested in, but if you're serious about it, and definitely before you take people in the water, get some kind of background, or don't take them places you haven't explored or things like that, just because there are so many things that could go wrong and variable factors. You
Yeah.
just don't want to ever be at fault for something unknowingly, and just be as prepared as possible. Even as you just start testing the waters, like, you should always use a contract. There should be some kind of safety mechanism for you, or preparing your client for how to be prepared for underwater and all that. So there's definitely a few things to consider when starting out.
Oh my gosh, thank you for touching on that, because it's so, like, when we are not experts in what we
Yeah.
do, we
You
are
just don't think about
automatically
it.
ignorant, and
Yes.
we are all ignorant to things that we don't, think about on a daily basis. So I
Totally.
literally would not have thought of that. I've been like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'll just like play around, we'll just stay in the shallow area, it'll be fine in the shallow area, right? But
Yeah.
so thank you so much for saying that, because so many photographers are going to hear that and it's going to make a positive
Like,
impact on
oh,
safety. So
yeah.
that's really, really good. I'm actually curious. So a lot of my listeners it's like mainly in North America. And for those that don't have access to like bigger bodies of water or oceans, actually let's
Yeah.
break it down into two different categories. So let's say a photographer has access to a lake and they want to
Yeah.
try shooting there, and then also pools. So a
Hmm.
pool either at a hotel or like on a private property. Do you have any safety tips? Because I know, to do with the ocean, that's a lot of safety tips that you
It
probably
is.
wouldn't have time
Yes.
to go into. But do you have something that you could offer everybody to be more safe when it comes to just being in a lake or a pool situation when they're playing around with that?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that also helps in just any kind of water photography is breath hold work. So you can
Is
do
what?
breath
Sorry.
hold. Oh,
Breath
is it
hold?
good connection? Yes, breath hold work.
Okay.
So just even you as a photographer, just doing some kind of breath hold work just to make it easier to shoot underwater. But I think as far as just safety in lakes, I haven't done much lake stuff. I do pool things every once in a while, but my safety for that is like I pull all of that from my ocean stuff. I think the biggest thing is, one, I can only lift up to a certain amount of weight. So for me, if you're over 125 or 150 pounds, my requirement is that someone else accompany, only because I can only lift so much. So if someone blacks out, or by the sad chance, because it has happened, people have heart attacks in water. And I'm pretty sure that's the number one killer for people in diving as well. Um, or yeah, this anything can happen in the water. So for me, I can only lift so much weight. So my requirement is if you're over this certain limit, someone else has to come. So if something happens, I have assistance to help get you out of the water. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that is probably the number one thing that I would suggest, even in a pool, even in a lake or something like that, or a pond, just having someone else there is probably, I think, one of the most important things, depending on your skill level, of course, how comfortable you are in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my other thing too. If you're not a very comfortable person in the water, you need to get comfortable before you can take people in the water. It's just not safe. It is not wise. So get yourself comfortable first before taking anyone out. But also know what your limits and capabilities are before as well.
Okay, that's awesome. And oh, the first thing that comes to mind actually is even just like hiring a lifeguard for that time.
Yeah,
And how that's a
yeah.
business expense, right?
Totally. You could
Yeah.
totally do that. Yeah, I mean, yesterday, so I brought a girl out on my friend's boat. We were out there doing some content stuff for him because he just launched his own business. I'm going to do a shameless plug. If you're coming to Oahu, he's amazing and super safe. It's Oahu Ocean Adventures, just launched. And I've dove with him a ton, but I had him on board. I had my boyfriend on board. I had my one of my favorite shark safety divers on board and a friend. And so it was a very safe environment. But I brought her on because I was going to shoot with her later in the day anyways. But I was like, why don't you just come out on the boat with us? And so just having those extra eyes around to be looking around for things like jellyfish or, anything, literally
Hmm.
anything where I'm especially so pinned into the camera and what I'm shooting. I think that I mean, I'm pretty good at breaking away and like looking around throughout the shoot as well, but just having those extra eyes around for variable factors or if like currents pick up or just anything. Yeah, just you can just bring a friend, you can hire a lifeguard, anything like that. But I'm always looking for ways to just make sure that I have people around, even if it's like just offshore, going to a beach that is populated with people. So if something does happen, I have eyes and hands to help. So
Okay, awesome.
yeah.
And I'm actually so now my mind goes straight. So I have my
Yeah.
the only like underwater thing that I have, which is
Okay.
not even fully proper underwater.
Yeah.
It's not even close to
Hey,
proper
it
underwater
works
housing.
though.
Yeah. So for those of you that are listening and not watching this on YouTube, it's called a Deka pack, WPS10 DSLR camera case. And I got it. It's like a $200 buy, which is obviously a lot more cost effective off Amazon. And I
Mhm.
got this like years ago because I was doing a lot of destination weddings, and at that time I wanted to do like having the couple on the edge of the water and
Yeah.
like waist height and then go down a bit, and then me have my camera half in the water, half up on
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
landscape to get that wave in the photo, right? I was like,
Yeah.
I've never done it before. I want to try. So that was the underwater housing that I bought for that. But it's like so much harder to use than like real proper underwater housing. But is there anything you would suggest for those that just want to create that photo where it's like the half water, half land
Yeah.
look?
Mhm.
Is there a better underwater housing that you know of, or a better option to still shoot with your DSLR?
Yes. So I'm gonna swivel over and grab my
Yeah.
housing. So ignore the sound. I just want to be able to show anyone who's watching.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, nice. You have it right at your hands. That's
I
at your
meant to have it on my
fingertips.
desk before we started,
Yeah.
but it was sitting not with me when we
Yeah.
started. So this is my housing. So there's a couple of different things to know about this. So this is an Aquatech housing. I have the base, which is the housing itself, and then I have the port. So actually, to get a good over under shot, I would actually put on a different port with a dome. The dome will help you get that shot without distorting so much. So like if I were to try to shoot an over under with this, it's going to be like probably perfectly focused and like right proportions on the person here, but the under the water part, it's probably going to look huge. So
Ah.
I would actually, and to be honest too, I think if you are even just dabbling in underwater, also, sorry, side note real quick, this is nice too because I can make tweaks and change things and all of that without having to like take it out of the housing.
Yeah.
So that's also another bonus. But
And what's that one called? It's from.
this is from Aquatech Imaging Solutions.
Mhm.
It is specifically for the 5D Mark IV. So all of these
Got
buttons
it.
are compatible with my camera. So if
Got
it's
it.
too dark, I can obviously make changes, or too bright, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think that if you are even just trying to dabble in ocean and underwater, I keep going back to ocean, but in just underwater period, I do think that it is worth it to invest in something quality, just obviously for the photo quality, but just the safety of your camera equipment, because even these babies can flood if you don't do everything right. So, which I recently had happen a few months
Oh
ago,
my
and it was
gosh.
very unfortunate, but it does happen. And I just think that even if you're wanting to dabble in it, it is worth it to invest in the qualities, and then you don't have to worry about flooding or anything like that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. The guys, the pack that I showed you, I'm just going to be very honest. I got it literally just knowingly I wanted a specific shot because it's so
Right.
hard to get even clarity
Mhm.
underwater or above. And you have to have, like, I'll show you, you have to have like this
Yeah.
part close to your lens. And I'm just like
So it's
trying
not
to
like getting in
shoot.
the shot.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah,
trying to shoot, hold this down,
it's a
focus,
lot
like
going on.
just so much. And I ended up getting literally the shot that I wanted. I'm really, really proud of it, but it could have been so much more crisper and sharper with, the proper housing. And it's also kind of terrifying because it's
It's
not
like a dry
as,
bag. It's a
yeah, it's
dry
like a
bag,
dry bag.
basically.
Yeah. So for
Yeah.
those of you listening, it's kind of like a Ziploc with like an area where your camera can hang out.
And I think the hard
Yeah.
thing with something like that too, which is why I like having a quality housing, is there's already so much going on
Yeah.
when you're trying to do underwater. So it's like, it's just nice to know that like, you know how to use the housing. You're not like shuffling and like trying to make things work and you're like uncomfortable and just trying to figure everything out. It's like, you know that with everything else that's going on with the water space, that at
Mhm.
least the housing you don't have to worry about. So
Yeah. And you can even like buy it and play around, create, and you can
yeah,
always sell it if you're like, okay, no, I
totally.
underwater isn't my thing. Like,
Totally.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, do you have any like technical tips that come to mind? Like even you just saying that for that housing that you have, in order for if you want to do what did you call it? The half land, half water. You called it
The
something
over
really cool.
under. It's an over under
Over.
shot. Yes.
Yeah, that's such a sick term. Okay. For someone to create an over under image and not have the bodies underwater be distorted, you said that there has to be like a attachment put on, like a dome or something.
Yeah, so it's a dome. It's like, so essentially with this, and I don't do a lot of over unders, so I can't speak to that too much. But
Hmm.
I do know that like with Aquatech, there's like a port that will come with it like this, but there's no top to it. And then there's the extra piece, which is the dome. And
Okay.
it goes like this. And it's like basically like a half sphere.
Hmm.
And you can get different sizes of those as well. So yeah, those would be more ideal for over under shots. I've also seen people mess around with like fisheye lenses and stuff like that. Um, but there are different ports that are compatible with different lenses that you have as well. So I would say for underwater, the more wide, the better, versus like more tight. So, but depends on what you want to shoot, because I do know some underwater photographers that only use a 50, and that's pretty cool too.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So I would love to know a little bit more about, I think, some tips that come to mind for those that want to photograph couples in the water of like maybe some prompts or a way to make it fun and seamless for them, but also you're able to get some good images. So maybe let's
Yeah,
focus a little bit on couples because a lot of my listeners love photographing couples and weddings and
totally.
all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, let me know anything that comes to mind with that.
So the first thing I tell any client, first of all, is because I'll have a lot of people that look at like my photos of me and they're like, I want to do this, I want to replicate something like this. But I'm like, I'm a seasoned diver. I have a lot of practice trying to look graceful underwater. So I think one of the first things that I do with anyone who wants to do underwater, couples or not, is let them know it is not easy to be graceful underwater. And you might get frustrated, you might, be like, oh, that was the shot, but it might not be. So I think, first of all, letting them know that it is not easy to be graceful underwater. It may take a lot of time. I don't do underwater shoots for under pretty much usually about under an hour and a half, because it's really not a lot of time to get, like, especially with clients who are like, I want a full gallery. A full
Mhm.
gallery takes time underwater. It's not like as easy on land where you can just like shoot, 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 shoot.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't do underwater for less time than under an hour and a half, and that's as a seasoned. And I'm still learning and still growing, of course, as we all are. But having had that experience, I know that even that's really not a ton of time underwater.
Mhm.
So, but I let them know, yeah, you're not. It's not easy to look graceful. It takes a lot of coaching, and that's also why I don't like doing less time than that. Is because so much time is also, first of all, giving them the time to get comfortable, because not everybody is as comfortable as I am in the water. Some people are, but some aren't. Most aren't.
Yeah.
Also, because yeah, it just does take time to coach them. So I think that that's the first thing. Um, the other thing is I visualize. It's a concept that I actually pulled from freediving, and this is something that I talk a lot about in the art of storytelling with my mentees, is that I visualize concepts pretty much ahead of time. I like to know what my couples look like and what they're going to wear, and I'll help them figure out what to wear. Definitely try to avoid white underwater because it's very reflective. It's really hard to expose for. I have really light white skin that is hard enough to expose for. So that's just something to consider. So I'm always like, hey, I'm here to help you if you need it. Most of the time, my clients take me up on it and I help them. They'll just send me pictures of what they want to wear and I help them piece it together. Um, ADHD brain kind of lost my train of thought there. Or they're like, oh,
You were saying
so
you like to visualize concepts ahead of
yes.
time, avoiding white.
Yeah, so I do like to visualize ahead of time, maybe stalk them on social media, figure out, if there's certain things that I want to photograph. That way I'm not spending a ton of time doing that in the water. So if there's like, if they have freckles or tattoos or whatever, or
Mm.
even the time of day that I'm shooting that I know we're going to get light rays or things like that, that a lot of that I try to visualize ahead of time, even if it's up to the day before, where I can like focus a lot on those unique traits about them, and then like other things where I'm like, cool, like just like dive down past each other or dive down and touch each other's fingers or just let all of your air out. That's another thing I don't suggest though if you're not
Yeah.
seasoned is I mean, I wear a weight belt to help me like get down in the water and be level with them and dive deeper and whatnot. But a trick that I like to do as well is be like, hey, like let all of your air out and you'll just kind of sink down a little bit so I can get a shot of you guys just like even like cuddled up just a little bit below the surface or things like that. Most of the time we're really not going that deep, especially because it can get so dark. So yeah, just like little things like that, but I definitely think visualizing ahead of time is really helpful for the day of, and you're not like sitting there stumped while you're in the water.
Wow, that's incredible. I actually, it's so cool how you describe that because looking at your work on Instagram, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like you just notice these details in just anything that you're photographing and it comes to life so like off of, I don't know how to explain it. It just like
Thank
comes to life in the photos that you photograph. And yeah, things like those like light rays that you get and all of that. It's like you just
yeah,
even gave me some ideas into how I can pre-think some things, right? Because the whole
yeah,
thing is like you want to be present as an artist and all of that, but
yes,
in a way, you having those things prepped can actually help and heighten your presence because you don't have to worry
totally,
about being like, oh wait, oh, I'm just noticing she has freckles. Oh, okay, I have this idea, but should I do it now or later? And
yeah.
it's like you have certain key things that you're like, oh yeah, I want to make sure to touch on that. I know that ahead of time. And then you can be kind of present and flow. Is that kind of why you do that?
Yeah, I think, well, so I think it helps too, having gone to the place and seen it yourself ahead of time really helps. I highly suggest that even for just normal shoots on land. But like I think it's more so that I want to be able to be as creative as possible with them and be able to create things that are different that I haven't already shot, which can be hard sometimes underwater. So I like to go ahead of time, and there's things that I look at, like if we're shooting where there's sand bottom, there's certain things I can shoot there that I can't if it's like coral bottom or rocky or things like that. So I like to visualize it ahead of time just so that I'm not in a box where I'm like trying to create something new or different. But yeah, seeing it ahead of time, but it does help to be more present with them, but also just for the simple fact that like your clients aren't going to be super comfortable probably in the water. But part of that is like the more confident you are, the more comfortable they're going to feel. And I think that that's really important because then they can loosen up. It's a fun experience instead of like this like scary thing where they're like, like I'm just trying to like not get water at my nose or like in my goggles or like anything else. I don't have to worry about everything else because they know that you've got them and that you're on it. So I do think that a lot of that comes with time doing it, but just being as confident as possible with the location you're shooting at really helps to ease their stress in their mind as well.
I love that so much. Do you have any other like prompt ideas you love to give them? Because you did give some like, oh, dive down towards each other and past each other
Yeah.
or embrace each other in the water. Is there
Yeah.
any other go-tos that you have that come to mind?
Yeah, so you can always do, of course, kissing underwater. I love a good over the top with them splashing each other or even splashing at my camera or things like that. But even to like prompts also can come down to like the time of day or even the surroundings. So I might have them depending on who the couple is, because I do have some that are into diving. So I'll have them, bring weight belts. I can have them walk along the sand bottom or go down and just stand there and hold hands and like look at each other or look at me, like, so that kind of stuff. It just kind of depends.
Mm-hmm.
But also, even if it's like sunset where I'm like, yes, the sunset's beautiful, like let's have you guys come up and just splash each other and play, and it's like really cool too, because then we don't have to worry about the camera getting soaked, but it actually looks awesome when it's in the frame. So yeah, I definitely think the biggest thing is to like, don't stress on getting the perfect shot. If it's not working out, move on to something else and just continue having fun with it, because the fun and the weird stuff are usually the things that turn out anyways. So, but if you're sitting there like where, in your case, you were like, I really just want this over under shot, which is awesome. But sometimes certain
Yeah.
things just don't work out, and it's okay to just move on and be like, we're just keep having fun, because when you're having fun, that's how things flow. And the second it becomes like, no, I have to get this shot, all of a sudden, all the creative energy and flow goes away. And then the couple might feel the stress or things like that. So it's just like, just move on and, let them think you got it. And then you can come back to it. If it's not, it could be the light that's not working. It could even be the water visibility or whatever. And you can come back to it later and try it again and do the best you can. But just keep it fun. I think that that's like the most important thing. And like,
I love that you said all of that. Like that is exactly the vibe on like sessions and during portrait time on wedding days. I'm like, as
totally.
soon as something feels off and like I have to try really hard to make something happen, or like there's a moment of there's no energy being created, it's like kind of like this
Yeah,
weird, quiet, in between, awkward
totally.
moment for like a
Yes.
split second. I'm like, okay, that's a sign to just move on because it's not flowing, it's not organic. And
Yeah, you just have to let it
yeah,
flow.
totally. Yeah. And what was I had another question and I'm like, did it just go away? Did it flutter away? Oh yeah, no, I remember. So what about when it comes to like clothing? What kind of
Mhm.
like tips would you give photographers to let their couples know of like what works in water, what doesn't? Yeah.
So I definitely think one of the things that a lot of my couples like to do is they like to wear like a dress or something in the water. Again, if you're not experienced, there's just certain things you don't want to push limits on. Like dresses, they will get heavy, they will weigh
Mhm.
them down. So that's just something really important to know. Um, as far as like what to have the clients wear, I tell them a swimsuit is always a good way to go. Something that's like, some small prints are okay. It's pretty much the same, like what to wear inspiration that you would have on land that you typically take in the water as well. So, like, maybe sometimes you just want to avoid smaller, close prints and things like that. But I tell them to avoid white. They can do their hair down, or they can do it in a ponytail, or even like a base ponytail with like a braid and then a ponytail at the bottom, things like that. It depends also what they want, like what they want the vibe to be. But
Mhm.
and then the guys usually wear just like swim trunks. I always like try to tell them, try to coordinate with the girls, because some men's swim trunks are not cute. And even like some girls' bikinis are just like really bright neon.
Mhm.
Avoid that.
Okay.
Also, the safety component to that, if you're in the ocean, is bright white and neon colors attract things to you. Like, not saying that you have to be scared of sharks by any means, but they're attention grabbing for anything. So it's like when you put a lure in the ocean and you're reeling it, or not even an ocean, in a lake, you just toss
Mhm.
a lure in, it's attention grabbing. So we do want to keep some attention away from us. Also, it can be really bright in the camera, so avoiding stuff like that. But as far as like what I wear in the water, I always wear a wetsuit. I think it also gets cold. So if like your clients are like, yeah, I'm totally about wetsuits, let them do it,
Mhm.
because it'll help them be comfortable as well. But I always wear a wetsuit, a weight belt, also because these babies, they're very buoyant. These water housings are very buoyant.
Oh.
I am a super buoyant human. I have to over I have to overweight myself. I usually weigh about 8 to 10 pounds to help me in the water, but I also wear free diving fins. So they're the long, very long fins. I don't
Mm-hmm.
wear short fins. You can, depends on what you're shooting and where. But I also wear my mask and my snorkel. And I like to use baby soap, by the way, big hot tip secret for defog. Baby soap it up and just do like 1 or 2 quick rinses and throw it on. It'll keep you clear. But that's typically what I wear because I want to make sure that I can be able to get down to get certain angles. I want to make sure that I'm warm, and also how warm you are and varying how hard you have to work can affect how long you can hold your breath. So just like some important things slash side tips to note. But
Those are such great pro tips. Oh my God. This is like, I'm loving all of this.
but
Okay. So
also
yeah.
like
Also, yeah.
things on like breath hold and that kind of stuff, those are also things you can learn when you do take courses through Patty.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of amazing things to learn and resources out there for people as well.
It's awesome. And how about let's also chat a little bit about maybe more like brand work clients. Like what
Yeah.
kind of if someone's interested in, okay, I'm a water person, like I love water. I want to be in oceans, I want to be in lakes, I want to be in pools, and that's where I want to base my photography out of and get creative in that area. Um, what kind of, clients look for that kind of brand content? What comes to mind, and how can they even get started with dipping their toe into attracting those
Yeah.
kinds of clients?
Yeah, so I think actually that kind of falls even into like our clients, like normal couples or things like that. A lot of the time, they don't know what they want. And a lot of the time, they don't even know what's possible. So I think, especially for brands who, like Cobian, for example, he's doing some work with Lubriderm. Would you ever think that Lubriderm would want like some underwater stuff or like ocean related things?
No,
Definitely
yeah.
not, but it would make sense. You know what I mean? Like dry skin, it can dry you out. Like
Mm,
things like that. So, or sunscreen companies. I work with wetsuit companies. I like it's just like super broad. So I think even a lot of the time, if you don't know if it's something that they want, is to just give them the idea because again, they don't know sometimes what they want or what might set them apart or help them level up their marketing or their photos or their approach and stuff like that. But I think one of the really cool things right now is that we're in this place where a lot of businesses and companies are moving toward a more sustainability approach. So, where the ocean makes up 70% of the air we breathe. And so, anything ocean related, and I keep falling back to the ocean, but if you are wanting to work with brands where a lot of these companies are trying to be more sustainable, pitch them something about the ocean because the ocean is a vital role in the health of our planet. You cannot get more sustainable than that, in my
mhm.
opinion, unless it's like rainforests or trees and all of that. But so I think that that's an awesome way to pitch to brands is with a sustainable approach. And how it can change things for them. Or if you do see brands that are doing stuff with underwater, reach out to them. But yeah, so I think that that's a really good kind of mindset and approach to take as well.
Awesome. And would you suggest that um, you know, they just start experimenting more in water, shoot what gets them excited, what lights their soul on fire, and
Yeah.
then naturally the right brands, the right small businesses will be attracted to their work, and that's how they'll start making money off of this.
Yeah, totally. I think getting it out there, obviously, just to show that you can do it before just like blindly pitching to them and not knowing if it's a skill you have. Um, but I do think when you put it out there, you'll attract it. I personally don't have to pitch myself too much. I do get the inquiries myself. But if I have like slower seasons or if there's like specific brands I'm wanting to work with, I do send them my media kit and brand pitch and stuff like that as well. But most of my like a lot of the brands that I work with, it's like for campaigns that they also want me to share with my audience. So that's where I kind of overlap with the brand photos and the influencer stuff, but not saying that you have to be an influencer to do the underwater stuff with brands. It just overlaps in unique ways and it's helpful. But I do have plenty of friends that just shoot the brands and don't do any posting or anything like that.
Yeah. Could you give an example of some like a way that, you're just living your life, you're passionate, you're free diving underwater, and then you're also photographing couples underwater and
Yeah.
brands, and then on top of that you get some kind of you create some kind of partnership to also share something on your social media and also add that influence portion. Could you give an example of one of those things, of like how what you have and how you even went about it if someone reached out to you?
Yeah, so I I think I understand what your question is. If not, let me know. But are you kind of just wondering how it like overlaps like with the
Yeah,
couples and the brands?
yeah, like
Okay.
how it naturally organically overlapped and happened for you, where you did get
Yeah.
approached to see, I'm not, I don't know the world
Yes,
of
I
like
totally get
quote
you.
unquote
Yeah,
influencer,
I
you know
know
what I mean?
exactly what you're asking.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So I think like I just like was in the brand slash influencer realm. I just did the things that I loved and shared it. And I think that that's one of the biggest things. It's like I'm already doing these things. So that's kind of where I attracted those kind of people and my stuff just kind of started growing. But I think one of the biggest things is like if you're not putting yourself out there, no one's going to know. And
Mhm.
so I think that that just also comes with the step of like, you don't have to share things with the idea to be an influencer. That's not, you don't have to do that, but you do need to show up within your business and you do need to show up because if you're not, how are people supposed to know? But I also think like I was doing the ocean conservation stuff and sharing about that and sharks and marine life. And then I was like, I want to do this with couples too. So then I set up a styled thing with a couple because I knew that I could do it. And I was just like, got some photos and then I started marketing it to my couples and I put it in my investment guides, I put it on my website and stuff like that. So I think it's just as like it's like one step to another and just figuring out ways, just having like a business mindset of how you can implement one thing into different things. Like Kobe and also just joined my business to do more work with adventure elopements and micro weddings. So it's like these little pockets of things that we both love and
Yeah.
can do that we know we're capable of doing. So it's like, why not do it?
Yeah. Yeah. If it's something that it fits into your lifestyle that you
Yeah.
already would naturally do anyway, it's like, why not incorporate it into your business and or learn how to monetize it so you're
Yeah,
literally living your dream life and making money while you're at it.
totally. And
Yeah.
I think also for anyone that's landlocked, I don't want you to feel like, oh, like I can't do this because I'm landlocked. Like you can do it in lakes, you can do it in like ponds, I don't know, you can, or pools, like
Yeah.
you can find ways to get creative. I think the biggest thing too is like, it's also just like a really cool and different and artistic way to approach your photography as well. Even if it's not a full gallery's worth of it, you can find ways like I have couples that are like, yeah, like we want to do the majority of our shoot dry and then like end up in the water. And it's
Hmm.
like awesome. You can end it with those things. It doesn't necessarily have to be a full gallery thing or a full, like huge time consuming commitment. It can be these small pockets. And so I think that also for people that are like, I don't know if I want to do this, or I don't know if this would fit my lifestyle. It's like, you just have to go and do it. It's like these people that hike, they don't know that they loved hiking until they just went and did it.
Yeah.
So just going out and doing it and having fun with it without putting the pressure of like, it has to be perfect or has to look a certain way or something like that. Sorry, I had a semi drive by
That's okay.
or something like that. I think just like take the pressure off and go have fun with it.
100%. Oh, I love that you said that. I think that's like the most powerful way to actually end this episode. You gave
Yay.
so much like value and insight, and I love all the random like tips for underwater shooting. And I love that you mentioned safety. That is so
Thank you.
important and key. So I appreciate
Yes.
that so much. So how can everybody find you? How can they connect with you? And also let them know
Yeah.
about any resources that you have available for them.
Yeah. So, well, I have two Instagrams, but if you go to either one, you'll be able to find the other. So my personal is Taylor R. Walston. It's TaylorRWalston. But if you just type in Taylor W, hopefully should maybe just come up. It's a pretty unique name a little bit. So that I also have my website. It's my same Instagram name.com. And as far as resources go, I did just launch my education space, I think a month ago. So right now I have investment guide templates and I'm launching my mentor guide hopefully tomorrow. It's been a slow work in progress. And I also have a branding guidelines and workbook. So if you're having a hard time figuring out your voice within your business or how to brand yourself and stuff like that, and branding is so much more than your fonts and your colors. It's literally the heart and soul behind your business. So if you're having a hard time figuring that out, I do have a workbook, but yeah, check that out. And I'm here for you guys if you have questions.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, Taylor, thank you so much. This was so much fun. And one day when I travel to Hawaii, because it's on the bucket list, we have to
Yes.
connect. Like, this
Yes,
was
I
so
would
much
love
fun.
to. I also do mentor sessions as well. So I'm here for that for anybody
There
who's
you
listening.
go.
And I would love to adventure with you whenever you make it this way.
There you go. Well, thank you so much, Taylor.
Yeah, thank you. And I will talk to you soon. And I'm excited for everyone listening to get into underwater. It's literally amazing.
Yay! Thank you so much for hanging out with me and tuning into this episode. If you got value out of it, please feel free to message me on Instagram at Sarah Monica Photo. That's Sarah no H, Monica with a K photo, to let me know. I get so freaking energized hearing from others that what I've said has had a positive impact on their lives. Also, make sure to hit subscribe to the Shine and Thrive podcast to never miss an episode. I'm so grateful for you, and I'm sending you all the productive vibes your way so you have the best week ever.